In the serene town of Ridgewood lived Scott Davis, a middle-aged man who found himself in the most dire of Craigslist situations. His recent breakup with his girlfriend had left him yearning for a fresh start, a chance to shake off the boredom that enveloped his existence. It was in these moments of introspection that an ad on Craigslist caught his attention a chance. At a steady $300 a week income and a place to live, all for the sake of overseeing a secluded farm. To Davis, the dream seemed too good to be true. But sometimes fate has a knack for weaving the unusual into the fabric of the ordinary. The ad drew a flood of applicants, more than 100 hopeful souls seeking solace in the promise of a new beginning. Among them, Scott Davis stood out as one of a select few, a finalist chosen to meet his employer in person and tour the farm. Davis looked forward to the day when he would finally go after that seemingly perfect job. Now all he had to do was meet the employer and tour the farm. After a final interview at a local restaurant, Davis climbed into the back seat of a white Buick, and his new employer, a stout man named Mike, took the front seat. Behind the wheel sat a stout teenager whom Mike introduced as his nephew. As they drove, the road took them farther and farther away from civilization. Soon a dense forest surrounded them, and after a while the Buick came to a screeching halt on a secluded stretch of dirt road. Mike's voice broke through the silence, instructing Davis to help carry some equipment from a spot just down the hill. When Davis disembarked, he found himself descending deep into the woods, accompanied by Mike and his nephew. Davis felt a sudden heaviness in the air, a tension that could not be ignored. There was a sharp click in the silence, and Davis's heart raced as he turned at the sound. Time seemed to slow down before his eyes as the pistol hammer shot crippled his elbow. Pain shooting through his body, instinct dragged him into the woods. Survival instincts kicked in and adrenaline masked the agony. Behind him, the air was filled with Mike's curses and the jerky rhythm of gunfire, each shot missing its target. Davis raced through the thicket like a hunted animal, his blood mixing with the ground beneath his feet. The clock dissolved into eternal night, and the silvery glow of the moon was his only companion. With each step he remained vigilant, knowing that at any moment Mike or his silent accomplice could find him. In his darkest hour, Davis stumbled upon a farmhouse. His plea for help was met with compassion and the owners contacted the authorities. As details unfolded, the horror of the situation became apparent. Mike was a facade, a mask worn by a man named Travis Beasley. The Craigslist ad turned out to be a nefarious trap, a lure that led unsuspecting men to their deaths. His nephew, Tyler Rafferty, a seemingly innocent teenager, was implicated in heinous crimes that claimed the lives of 3 men, their bodies hidden in shallow graves beneath the very soil Davis fought over. The wheels of justice began to turn and the truth was revealed to the public. In 2013, Travis Beasley was sentenced to death and his reign of terror came to an end. Tyler Rafferty, despite his youth, had to spend his life behind bars, and the severity of his actions became a burden he could never shake off. In the town of Willowbrook lived a man named Mark Sullivan. Mark was a humble man who went about his daily business in a quiet and reserved manner. He had a steady job at the local hardware store and was content with the simple life he led. One day, while browsing online classifieds, Mark came across an ad that caught his eye. There was a washing machine for sale on Craigslist. He had been thinking about replacing his old washing machine for some time, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity. The seller was a man named Victor, who claimed that the washing machine was in excellent condition and available at a reasonable price. Cautiously optimistic, Mark contacted Victor and arranged to meet him in a parking lot in a nearby town. When Mark inspected the washing machine, Victor assured him that it worked perfectly and showed no signs of damage. Satisfied with the transaction, Mark handed over the money and loaded the washing machine into his truck. As day turned to night, Mark decided to test out the new washer. However, his excitement was soon replaced by disappointment when he discovered that the washer was malfunctioning. It just wouldn't start. Annoyed, he sent Victor a message explaining the situation and asking for a refund. To his surprise, Victor's response was far from cooperative. Victor claimed that the washing machine was sold as is, exactly as described in the ad, and refused to take responsibility for the malfunction. Growing increasingly frustrated, Mark realized that he might have been taken advantage of. He suspected that the washing machine had been installed in such a way as to hide its true condition, and was a victim of fraud. He responded to Victor about his concerns, but the conversation quickly turned into a heated altercation. Victor began sending angry messages, demanding that Mark stop bothering him. Things took a dark turn when the next day Mark began receiving a barrage of threatening messages and phone calls from unknown numbers. It appeared that Victor had enlisted the help of others to intimidate Mark into backing off. The messages contained threatening words and some even contained death threats. Mark was nervous but determined to stand his ground. Days turned to nights and the harassment continued. The calls and messages continued, leaving Mark in a state of constant anxiety. He tried blocking the numbers, but they kept changing, making it almost impossible to escape the onslaught of threats. 2 nights after buying a faulty washing machine, the situation reached climax. At 3 a.m., Mark awoke to a loud banging on the front door. His heart racing, he looked out the peephole and saw a group of angry people shouting and demanding that he opened the door. Panic slammed into his veins. Hiding in the darkness of his apartment, Mark called the police and explained the terrifying situation. While he waited for help to arrive, the people outside continued to shout threats and insults. Minutes seemed like hours as he sat in the dim light, and his fear grew with each passing moment. Eventually, the sound of approaching sirens cut through the night and the intruders dispersed before the police could arrive. The police recorded Mark's account of events, promising to investigate further. The following days were a mixture of relief and tension. The messages and threatening phone calls had subsided for the moment, but the anxiety remained. In the city of Edenwood, the lives of 2 people were destined to intersect in a blood-chilling story. Maya Ann Olsen, an upbeat and hopeful young woman of 24, had just embarked on the journey of postgraduate life after completing her studies at Olaf College in Minnesota. Her heart was full of hopes for a career in theater, but for the moment she was working part-time as a nanny taking care of her children. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the same town, 19-year-old William John Anderson cherished thoughts far deviating from the norm. William was an enigma, drawn to the adrenaline and excitement of paintball, but he was haunted by darker desires that remained in the shadows of his mind. Curious and disturbing thoughts swirled within him, thoughts that pondered the feeling of taking another person's life. These thoughts shrouded his existence in an eerie shroud, forcing him to grapple with the duality of his own nature. Driven by these dark reflections, William devised a plan that set the stage for the unfolding tragedy. Identifying himself as a woman named Amy, he entered the realm of anonymity offered by the internet by posting a seemingly innocuous ad on Craigslist in 2007. Under the guise of a mother looking for a nanny, he lured unsuspecting souls into his web of deceit, creating an illusion of normalcy that masked the abyss within. Among those who responded was Maya. As fate would have it, the girl's curiosity outweighed her fears. She agreed to honor Amy's request, setting the stage for the meeting in a modest but disturbing split-level home in Savage, Minnesota. The morning sunlight painted a deceptive picture of the day. Maya arrived, her heart fluttering with excitement and anxiety. She was unknowingly entering the darkest chapter of her life. William, now completely mired in his conniving machinations, greeted Maya at the door with ostentatious warmth. He led her up the stairs to his bedroom, a seemingly innocuous gesture that concealed the sinister scheme he had created. What happened within those 4 walls remained shrouded in a veil of uncertainty, a mystery whispered only to the walls that witnessed the unfolding horror. For a moment, the winds of intuition stirred within Maya, a faint whisper of danger touching her senses. Panic gripped her, causing her to flee from the looming evil that surrounded her. Desperation drove her to flee, but she wasn't fast enough to dodge the evil hand of fate. A deafening crack rang through the house, a gunshot rang out, and Maya's world came crashing down. The .357 Magnum round found its target, piercing her back and instantly robbing her of her life force. As her life ebbed away, a grim picture unfolded. William, driven by his twisted curiosity and the dark fantasies that consumed him, overpowered Maya's weakened form. The trunk of his car became a grave. Fate, however, had not abandoned Maya completely. Echoes of her existence reverberated through time, manifesting themselves in small but important details. Beside it lay her crumpled cell phone, the silent guardian of her truncated life, evidence of her struggle and defiance in the face of malevolence. The investigation that followed painted a vivid picture of the deception. William's carefully constructed facade crumbled under the weight of his own folly. Edenwood, once a haven of tranquility, became the backdrop for a horror story. In the quiet suburban neighborhood of Edgewood, Washington, the sun was beginning to set, casting a warm orange light over the tree-lined streets. Among the neatly manicured lawns and charming homes lived Ethan Sanders, a middle-aged man with a heart of gold and a diamond ring that had both sentimental and financial value. The diamond ring was passed down from generation to generation, a family heirloom that testified to love stories and moments of joy. However, times were hard and the Sanders family found themselves in need of financial assistance. Ethan knew that a diamond ring could provide the help they desperately needed. With hope in his heart, he put the ring up for sale on Craigslist, anticipating an amount of money that could ease their worries. He dreamed of getting at least $1.00 to support his wife and two sons, ages 10 and 14. He had no idea that this seemingly innocent decision would start a series of events that would ruin their lives forever. A few days after placing the ad, Ethan received a response from a young married couple who appeared to be interested in purchasing a diamond ring. They introduced themselves as David and Emily, expressing a desire to see the ring in person before making a decision. Ethan, a kind and trusting man, welcomed the idea and invited the couple to his home. As the day waned and darkness fell, a knock sounded through the hallways of the Sanders residence. Ethan opened the door and saw a well-dressed young couple, David and Emily, as they had introduced themselves in their correspondence. The couple exuded an air of sophistication that put Ethan at ease. He led them inside, inviting them into the living room, where a diamond ring gleamed in the soft glow of the overhead lights. However, the warm facade was quickly shattered when David's demeanor changed. In a sudden and frightening movement, he pulled out a gun and pointed it at Ethan, his wife and their two sons. Panic and fear swept through the room as the family was ordered to lie on the floor. Their hands were bound with rough ropes, rendering them helpless. To their horror, the nightmare was far from over. As the Sanders family lay shivering on the floor, the front door was violently swung open and two more armed men burst into the house. The invasion was swift and brutal, and the new arrivals wasted no time in asserting their authority. One of them, a tall and menacing figure, pounced on Ethan's 14-year-old son. The sickening sound of impact echoed through the room, leaving behind an atmosphere of fear and pain. The attack on his son was the spark that ignited Ethan Sanders. Fueled by fatherly love and all-consuming rage, he summoned a power he didn't even know he had. With a surge of determination, he fought the shackles that bound him. Ignoring the pain, he lunged at the man who had harmed his child, and a primal scream escaped his lips. But the outcome was tragic and inevitable. Gunshots rang out, the sound echoing through the confined space like thunder. Ethan Sanders fell to the floor, struck by 3 bullets. The room was filled with a ghostly silence, broken only by the agonized screams of his wife and the frightened sobs of his children. 3 days after the horrific incident, a routine traffic stop in California yielded unexpected results. 3 suspects were apprehended by the long arm of the law. In the days that followed, the net around the 4th suspect tightened. The weight of a statewide manhunt fell on him, and he eventually surrendered to authorities. The perpetrators stood trial and faced the consequences of their heinous actions. Each of the 4 suspects was sentenced to prison terms ranging from 79 to 123 years. Their fate decided by the court's verdict. In the town of Maplewood, located in the heart of New Jersey, a story of unexpected twists and turns was about to unfold. At the center of it all was a talented hairdresser named Louis, a name that brought back memories of a bygone era. Louis' reputation went far beyond the city limits for her unique approach to hairstyles and uncanny ability to transform the looks of her clients. Louis' apartment, a cozy space filled with the faint smell of hair products and the soft hum of a blow dryer, served as her creative sanctuary. It was also her office, a place where clients looking to change their appearance often turned up. One fateful day, however, the studio's tranquil atmosphere was shattered by the appearance of a woman named Vivian, who had seen Louis' Craigslist ad. Vivian was a striking figure, her demeanor radiating an air of sophistication and elegance. She had heard rumors of Louis' magic touch and decided to seek her help. With a wide gesture, she presented a picture of the celebrity, her eyes glistening with anticipation. "I want my hair to look like this," she declared in a commanding voice. It was a complex design, requiring precision and patience. Louis hesitated, realizing the difficulties that lay ahead. As the scissors began their dance, Louis' hands moved with honed grace, each cut a testament to her skill. Hours passed like minutes, and as the last strand of hair fell to the floor, Louis felt a sense of accomplishment sweep over her. She turned her chair around, wanting to see the expression on Vivian's face, but the mirror revealed a different story. Vivian's face contorted into a mask of fury as she examined her reflection. "This isn't what I wanted at all," she hissed, her disappointment palpable. "I trusted you and you ruined my hair." Louis' heart dropped. She had put all her heart and soul into her hair, but it seemed her efforts had fallen short of Vivian's expectations. "I'm sorry," Louis began, her voice tinged with regret. "If there's anything I can do to fix it." But before she could finish her sentence, Vivian's hand rummaged through her bag and pulled out a can of pepper spray. The room filled with a noxious fog. Louis' eyes pinched shut as she jerked back, her heart pounding in her chest. She coughed and gasped, trying to realize the sudden turn of events. As Louis stumbled toward the door, her vision blurred and her thoughts swirled in a haze of confusion. The world outside her apartment seemed distant and unattainable.